When you're discarding to your opponent, try to avoid cards of sequence. Although, as you'll see when you get into the chart, we'll get there in a little bit, there are some cards of sequence that are not particularly dangerous. Queen King, classic example. Queen King gets a lot of zero cribs. Their cards next to next. But it doesn't work so well when you start dumping 6, 7, 3, 4. Even though 1, 2 is at the end of the deck, it's not in the same class as the King, Queen on the other end, because the second most frequent discard in cribbage by the dealer is 2, 3. So don't get to thinking because they're both at the end of the deck that they're anywhere near equal. But King, Queen's pretty safe, and the 1, 2 is not very safe. King is the most effective balking card. If you're going to pick one card out of the deck of 52 to start with, the King is the most effective balking card. There's only one difference that I know, and nobody even needs to know it. There's one place for whatever reason, in the work I did on 250,000 cribs, that the Queen with that card is slightly better than the King. But if you're looking at a 6, the safest card to put the 6 with is a King. If you're looking at an 8, it's a King. If you're looking at a 1, it's a King. If you're looking at a 2, it's a King. If you're looking at a 3, it's a King. All the way through, except for the 5 King. So that, and on the pairs, which you already got the chart to your own crib, which we covered last week, you see there's a difference between how they work. But King, if that's all you took out of this class tonight, is that the King with any other given card has a lower average than the same card with the Queen. And you don't gain anything by changing suits. Some folks, for instance, a 10 King of the same suit still has a lower average than a 9 King of different suits. There is a wide enough difference in these discard averages that just changing the suit doesn't make it any difference in how it scores. It's 1 in 680 some cribs that are cribs flushes. So the actual, in this work you got here, I think it says that cards of the same suit have an added value of 5/100ths of 1 point. Well, I rounded it off. It's really 0.038 of a difference. That's how much difference there is by you. And I'm not saying that in your own crib, if you can put matching cards in suit, yeah, go ahead. I mean, if you got to put a Jack Queen in your crib and they're of the same suit, I mean, that's slightly better than a Jack Queen of different suits. But don't change your discard to your opponent's crib based on the suit of the cards, because the one you changed to is of a higher value than the one you were going to make to begin with. In other words, the 10 King, you looked at the 10 King and they're both spades. Oh, I can't do that. I can do the King and the 9 because the 9 is a diamond. The average for the King 9 is greater than the 10 King of the same suit. So you don't gain that. And all through the discard chart, same way. If you switch suits, you're still giving them a better discard by making the break in the suits. Just go with the best discard and forget about the suits. Now, have you ever noticed, be wary of cards that have 1 space between them? Have you ever noticed how often you either cut the one that fits between them or your opponent puts it in there? Well, think about that for a minute. So you actually created a scenario. If you had a 6 and an 8, you've got 2 of the cards that would make a 7 work in your opponent's hand, don't you? One on either side. So you actually skew the mathematics a bit, and the 7 just happens to show up because you had 2 cards that it would take to make it work. Same with the 1-3. If you got a 1-3, it's a fairly good chance the deuce won't work that well in your opponent's hand. So so be wary. Sometimes it's the best you can do. They're better than cards of sequence, but don't be surprised that they're helped, because the math is stacked up on you. I covered that already. Once in a while I say something that's exactly as it is on the chart. It's 680 deals, 1 in 680 deals for a crib plus. Now, I hear folks say, oh, I don't know why it works this way, but every time I throw these cards to my opponent's crib, they get big points out of them. I put them in my own, and they're not worth a hill of beans. And that's true. You aren't imagining something. It's not Murphy's Law. It's not the cribbage God being against you. There's 2 sets of discard averages. You're going to have the second set tonight, and you had the one to your own crib last night. Some of them are miles apart. Some of the discards are miles apart. The one I like to always refer to is an 8-8. 8-8 to your own crib is worth 2 a whole lot of the time. 8-8 to your opponent's crib is worth a whole bunch more than that a whole lot of the time. The difference being, the most frequent discard the dealer is dropping on the table is
7-8.
7-8 of the 91 discards. 7-8, the most frequent discard on the table. Well, they don't often throw them to you. So that crib is stacked before you ever drop your cards on it. And if it's not middle cards, it's 2 small cards. If you look at the 10 most frequent discards the dealer makes, 4 of them are small card combinations and 5 of them are middle card combinations. Only 1 is face cards. Only 1 is face cards. And that is one of the keys. If you understand that, very high percentage of the time, there's going to be 2 small cards or 2 middle cards on the table. And if you don't have a good discard, 2 10-pointers, oh, by the way, none of the discards in the top 10 include a 5. Even though people are scared to death of a 5 being in the crib. None of the 10 most frequent discards made include a 5. They do include a deuce tray. Deuce tray is second, but none of the 10 include a 5. So these averages are entirely different. If you take a 10 king and give it to your opponent, it has the lowest average of any discard in cribbage. If you put it in your crib, it's the only discard in cribbage that's worth less than 3. Now it's worth 3.8 or something like that to your opponent, but it's worth less than 3, like a full point less to your own. When you start looking at them, they're nearly all like that. Sometimes very small differences, but of the 91 discards, they all look different on the opponent's side of the board. So we want to try to keep the opponent's crib small, and we want to add some points to our own.